They were looking for that as well as any other thing going on in the community and came across the smoke.
Tonight, developments in the RCMP investigation into the huge fire at the Northmart in Iqaluit.
Still here. In no means are we going away, and we will not allow this pipeline to go through.
Expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline continues, even without the legal means to proceed.
Being that hands-on and making that instant connection, it just has such a profound effect.
And want to look like TV on north of 60? Actor Dakota House wants to put your bid to a good cause. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. As Iqaluit recovers from a fire that destroyed the largest grocery store in the Nunavut capital, now someone is facing charges for the Northmart fire. Our Kent Driscoll in Iqaluit has more.
Things returned mostly to normal in Iqaluit following this fire that destroyed Iqaluit's largest retailer, the Northmart. These giant trucks are able to continue work on the new harbor. They couldn't drive on this road yesterday. It was too close to the fire. Here at Arctic Ventures, the other grocery store in Iqaluit, there was a short rush on items the day of the fire. A day later, shelves look fairly full, no long lines. The food supply looks safe for the time being. A jet full of food is scheduled to set down this afternoon. The shelves will be full soon. This is what is left of the back of the Northmart. The front was saved, but the back burned for 22 hours. Next to it, that's the Iqaluit Elders' home. They were moved into a hotel last night, but that mess will be causing elders a problem for the foreseeable future. Ravens and wreckage. That's all that's left here. And now, Iqaluit's worst fears have been realized. RCMP say that this fire was arson. A young offender, a girl, has been charged with arson and disregard for human life. Originally, RCMP had 2 young offenders in custody. A male has been released.
This morning, continuing our investigation, we were able to establish one individual that was accounted for during the time of the fires, even though there was some implications that he may have had involvement. This afternoon, we had one young offender appearing before the Nunavut Court of Justice.
RCMP say there were 6 fires over the course of that night, and it was Iqaluit's RCMP who spotted the Northmart blaze first.
They were just out being on patrol, and they were actually looking for any abandoned stray dogs. The weather's been turning colder, and sometimes when we come across them, they will provide a bit of food and nourishment for the pups or dogs. And in this case, that's they were looking for that as well as any other thing going on in the community, and came across the smoke.
For a small city of just over 7,000 people, Iqaluit faces more than our share of disasters. If not for dog-loving RCMP, it could have been worse. We can handle disaster. Our dump catches fire, a recent windstorm tore some homes to pieces, and we've had serious fires here in the past. In this case, no one was injured. People are getting food, and someone is in custody for allegedly starting the latest Iqaluit emergency. On the grand scale of Iqaluit disasters, losing the Northmart is a big one, but one this city seems prepared to manage. After all, we have the experience. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Indigenous and environmental groups are calling it a legal victory and a serious setback for a pipeline that would run from Alberta to Nebraska. A judge in Montana has put the brakes on the Keystone XL pipeline, ruling it must pass further environmental review. The 1,900-kilometer project has faced opposition for years and looked as though it might never go ahead. But just days into his presidency, Donald Trump resurrected the project. Trump calls the ruling by a Montana judge a disgrace. TransCanada, the company looking to build Keystone XL, says it is reviewing the legal decision, but remains committed to the project. The Trudeau government says it will reach out to TransCanada to see how it can support the pipeline.
I am disappointed in the court's decision, and I will be reaching out to TransCanada later on today to show our support to them and understand from them what the path forward is for them. It is very important for our government that we continue to expand our pipeline capacity to get our resources to not only to the U.S., but also very important that we expand our markets beyond the United States.
Meanwhile, it's been just over 2 months since the Federal Court of Appeal quashed the decision to approve the Trans Mountain Pipeline. But for those on the front lines fighting against the project, they are continuing to find ways to get their message across. APTN's Tina House has this story.
For Tsleil-Waututh band member Will George, just because the federal court has quashed the approval of the Trans Mountain Pipeline doesn't mean the fight is over for those opposing the project.
Being here right outside the Kinder Morgan compound, you can see the heavy-duty construction still going on in there. And the residents, the support we have, and I get reports of heavy machinery going through there.
And this drone footage shows that construction is still underway at the Kinder Morgan tank farm on Burnaby Mountain, despite the fact that the project was sent back for review to the National Energy Board. For Will George, who's been leading the fight against the Trans Mountain Pipeline since last March, he says no means no, and that they will never have consent for the project.
We're still here. In no means are we going away, and we will not allow this pipeline to go through.
The Watch House, otherwise known as Quequec Alta, or a place to watch from in the Hunkaminam language, has been used since time immemorial by Coast Salish people. It's to watch enemies on their territories, protecting them from danger. This 25-foot totem pole has just been carved by Jerry Sheena and his apprentice Veronica.
Very moving to to work with a carver and communicate on what designs to put on there and what to represent, what story to tell, and to see the finished project and to be a part of this was absolutely moving. To touch that pole and to feel that and be a part of this ceremony, it was incredible.
It's meant to continue to stand watch over the project.
Having the orca on the bottom coming from water, this is what we chose to put here. Everything starts with water. Water's life, and this is the base of our pole is what we chose to use. Because my nation spent 9 years in court battling this, we chose the wolf because that's the wolf where we come from. That's our clan. We have the Watch House. This is a watchman, a human. So we have the orca, my nation, the wolf, and a human up top here. This is what we chose to put on here, and again, this is how we tell our stories with a totem pole. So this is our story.
Tina House, APTN National News, Burnaby.
There's been an escape from the Healing Lodge at the center of recent controversy. Corrections Canada says Jolie Lambourne has escaped from the Okimah-Ochi Healing Lodge in Maple Creek, Saskatchewan. That's the same Healing Lodge convicted child killer Terry Lynn McClintock was being housed until just yesterday. Corrections Canada says more information on the escape will follow as soon as it's available. Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale announced a gun and gangs initiative on Thursday. $214 million is being made available for the provinces and territories. Some of it will be earmarked for organizations that deal with gangs on the street. Goodale used the Saskatoon-based Straight Up program as an example. It helps mostly Indigenous people caught up in the gang lifestyle.
It could be initiatives like the Straight Up program in Saskatoon that endeavors to get people who become entrapped in gang activity, give them pathways to get out of that activity, and programs right at the very front of the process, such as been run by some school boards and some YMCAs across the country to help young people from getting started in gang activity from day one.
Time for a quick break, and then we'll look back on the life of an Indigenous World War I soldier that few in Canada have ever heard of.
Here's a look at Saturday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Sunny and a high of +8 for Halifax, 6 under the sun in Charlottetown. -1 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, +1 and sunny in Cartwright. 4 with rain-snow mix for Montreal, rain-snow mix for Saguenay and Quebec City with +1. +1 in Sarnia, London and Peterborough. -8 and sunny for Sioux Lookout. -4 with a rain-snow mix for Thunder Bay. -11 in Thompson, 8 below for The Paw and Puckatawagan. -7 in snow for Gimli and Winnipeg. -6 with snow in Dauphin. -6 as well in Regina, Estevan and Swift Current. -7 for Saskatoon. -11 in Stony Rapids, 8 below in La Ronge.
Welcome back. Indigenous soldier Francis Pagamagabo may not be a well-known name in Canada, but he was a highly decorated First World War soldier who was willing to take on dangerous tasks and is celebrated in Europe as a war hero. APTN's Beverly Andrews caught up with his descendants in Belgium.
2017 commemorates the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Passchendaele, one of the deadliest World War I battles where tens of thousands of soldiers were lost. Francis Pagamagabo from the Wakasing First Nation in Ontario fought in this battle and many others.
He left Canada as an Indigenous person who really probably thought of himself as a treaty person, who came as an ally and not as a subject. Right, who was honoring his commitment to treaty by joining the Commonwealth and enlisting for this war.
Pagamagabo enlisted just days after Britain declared war on Germany. Initially, the Canadian government discouraged Indigenous people from enlisting, but that didn't stop Francis. His great-granddaughter Julia traveled to Belgium to honor him and all who fought.
You know, we may have been a small portion, 4,000 people, 4,000 men enlisting from Indigenous communities, but the contribution was great.
Francis Pagamagabo was the deadly sniper of World War I. He is credited with 378 kills of German soldiers and capturing 300 more. His skills helped him carry messages along the front lines.
It was indeed a great sacrifice, just as with the rest of Canadian soldiers who came here and lost their lives here and returned home, or those who returned home.
Francis was awarded the Military Medal, first bar at the Battle of Passchendaele and the second for the Battle of the Scarpe. He also received the 1914-15 Star, the British War Medal, and the Victory Medal. During battle, Pagamagabo was an equal, a hero.
Once Francis returned to Canada, he was again under the control of the Indian agent. He fought just as hard for the freedom of the Indigenous people back home as he did for the people of Europe.
With all he had seen and witnessed, Francis had a new outlook on life at home.
He was certainly in the war a sniper and a scout. Francis was also a father, a good community member, former political Wasauksing councillor, chief, and also national chief of the time National Indian Government.
Having been an equal in the trenches, risking his life and sustaining injuries, it was unacceptable to be under the control of the Indian agent and other Canadian policies meant to limit Indigenous rights and freedoms.
And that was really what Francis referred to after the war as his greatest war, to ensure the legacy of his people forever into the future.
Working for the betterment of Anishinaabe of Wasauksing and eventually the entire country, Francis wanted to unite and strengthen Indigenous people, to have treaties honored, to be recognized as equals.
I think the biggest accomplishment is he came home. He got to come home, and we're here because he was able to come home.
Julia hopes the legacy and heroism of her great-grandfather and all Indigenous soldiers is taught more in schools so that their service is never forgotten. Beverly Andrews, APTN National News, Passchendaele, Belgium.
The 60s Scoop saw tens of thousands of Indigenous children adopted out to non-Indigenous homes. In Saskatchewan, the Adopt Indian Métis program took it to another level. Tonight on APTN Investigates, video journalist Cullen Crozier takes an in-depth look at the AIM program and asks why Métis are being excluded from a landmark settlement with Ottawa. Cullen joins us now from our Yellowknife Bureau. Cullen, good to see you. Can you tell us a bit about how this story came to be?
Yeah, well, as you know, Dennis, the Sixties Scoop continues to have a devastating impact on thousands of Indigenous Canadians across the country, not just the kids that were caught up in it, but also their family members. You know, it's still not known how many victims there were. Some put the number at 20,000. Other people put that number a lot higher. So I guess some of my reasoning is that each of these survivors has a unique story to tell, and I feel they deserve to be told. Now, how I came to this story specifically was basically the $875 million settlement agreement that was announced last year, and the fact that only First Nation and Inuit survivors were being allowed to sign on. Basically, Métis non-status 60 Scoop survivors were excluded. So basically, I wanted to explore some of the reasoning behind that decision, and that ultimately brought me to Saskatchewan and the Adopt Indian Métis program.
And yeah, can you tell us what the Adopt Indian Métis program is?
Yeah, well, the Adopt Indian Métis program, or AIM as it came to be known, it was essentially an advertising campaign that was designed to sell the idea of Indigenous adoption to the residents of Saskatchewan. It started as a pilot program in 1967. It was funded by both the federal and provincial governments. And basically, this advertising agency, they designed a lot of these commercials and newspaper ads, public service announcements, radio spots. And they were all designed to kind of ease the public's apprehensions about bringing Indigenous children into their homes. So today what you're left with is really eerie and, you know, kind of deplorable archives of this footage of Indigenous kids in the child welfare system, essentially in non-Indigenous homes.
Cullen, why have the Métis been excluded from the 60 Scoop settlement?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dennis. It's probably best answered by the Department of Crown Indigenous Relations and Minister Carolyn Bennett. I don't know. In the last year, a few reasons have been given. One being that the provinces are responsible for Métis as opposed to the federal government. Another one that there's difficulty in determining who exactly the Métis are. I don't think really either of those arguments hold much weight. Basically, Minister Bennett herself has said that there's still much work to be done in regards to Métis and non-status 60 Scoop survivors. But when we tried to contact them to elaborate on that or clarify, basically we haven't got any response.
Well, the previews look great, Cullen. Looking forward to seeing the episode tonight. Appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you, Dennis.
And that episode airs right after the news. One of the most memorable articles of clothing from the hit show North of 60 is up for sale. I'll be placing my bid as we step aside for this short break. Here's the rest of Saturday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. -9 under sunny skies for Fort McMurray. -2 and snow for Medicine Hat. +1 in Lethbridge and Calgary. On the west coast, 11 under sunny skies for Tofino. +6 and sunny in Bella Coola. -9 and snow for Fort Nelson. 11 above for Prince Rupert. -14 in Mayo and Beaver Creek. Over to NWT, -12 in Wrigley, -9 in Norman Wells, -11 for Fort Simpson, -14 for Sax Harbor, 15 below with snow in Colville Lake, -23 in Whale Cove, 25 below for Baker Lake, -14 for Iqaluit and Clyde River, -20 in Resolute. Welcome back. 14 years ago, actor Dakota House created Going Miles with his friend Scott Ward. Their goal was to inspire and teach Indigenous youth across Canada. And now Dakota House is auctioning off his prized jacket from the TV show North of 60 to raise funds to bring up to 40 kids to Victoria for one of their camps. I'd bid on that Metallica shirt too. With more, here's Chris Stewart.
See, the little unity is all we really need. It's kind of hard when you don't know where your place is. I'm trying to find a...
Actor Dakota House has been to nearly every corner of Canada. He co-created Going Miles to help Indigenous youth. His interactive workshops are designed to improve self-esteem and confidence, to teach in a fun environment. The sessions offer hypnotism experiences, a dance party, and learning traditional teachings like the medicine wheel. Now, he wants to bring 2 youth from 20 communities across Canada to the Royal Roads University in Victoria, the setting of the X-Men movies. Raising money was not as easy as he thought.
We put a GoFundMe page out. GoFundMe page in the last couple of weeks, I mean, it has one donation. Now it's from Shirley, so thank you so much, Shirley, of $200, and I'm like, at this rate, you know, it's we better explore some other means. So what I did was I took a look at my jacket and decided, you know, I'm gonna put it up and I'm gonna see how many bids we can get, how much I can raise for this cause.
This is a one-of-a-kind replica of the jacket House wore as TV on the hit TV series North of 60. He put the jacket up on his Facebook page.
Right now, our highest bid is at $3,500, which is, for me, I was just like, holy smokes, wow. That's flights and hotel for a youth from pretty much anywhere in the country right now.
Going Miles are selling hoodies and t-shirts on their website, goingmiles.org, to raise money to bring the youth to Vancouver next year. House says the experience for the kids can really make an impact on them.
Being that hands-on and making that instant connection, it just has such a profound effect. You know, it opens their eyes. You know, when you see youth who are removed and their heads down and stuff, and then when they're like, their eyes are wide open and you have their full attention, it just, man, it has that spark of magic within, and I just know that, you know, that we've inspired, that we motivated.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Love that story. Hope those bids go higher. Now to a different fashion statement. This week is Indigenous Beauty, Fashion and Design Week in Calgary. As part of the event put on by Aki, a pride and protest fashion show was held downtown, featuring over 50 First Nations, Métis and Inuit designers and artists. Carol Mason has been a designer for over 30 years. She says the show is a celebration of culture, pride and creativity.
On this Turtle Island, we all have our identity of design. We have our colors, our symbols. So I think it's very important that we continue to maintain who we are through clothing and identity.
That is your APTN National News for this Friday. For more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. Stick around. APTN Investigates is next. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.